Hello from Skiathos, the Greek island where we're exploring the relationship between landscape, soulscape, and a creative life. We're going to go pretty deep today and explore an area that has the potential to bring major changes to our lives, helping us to found a profound freedom and liberation. This episode is about releasing from our lives those things that no longer serve us. And this may be very concrete things like particular habits or even a job or relationship, or something more subtle like an aspect of our sense of self and identity, a part of our way of being that we've outgrown. We'll go gently, as this can be challenging terrain to navigate, but I'll offer some simple practices that can help us move forward into a life unburdened by stuff we may have been carrying for quite some time. I once connected with a wise and magical woman in a very wonderful way. One of those people who can sense your soul and knows what you need to hear. And she told me the story of a person traveling through a wild land. For a time, they sailed down a river in a little boat, and their journey was swift until, in time, the river became too rocky and turbulent, and they could get no further in the boat. So they set to shore and dragged the boat up onto the riverbank, where they could see the path they were needed to follow, leading deep into the tangled forest. And so, with all their strength, they hauled the boat up onto their back and set off into the undergrowth, struggling under the weight. The bulk of the load was getting tangled in overhanging branches. Their progress was slow and hard. But they kept on clinging to the boat as they pushed along the narrow path, because you never know. Around the next corner, there might be another river, there might be a lake that needs passing over, all kinds of reasons they might need the boat again, because it had served them so well on the journey so far. The burden was exhausting. There was no way that they could joyfully and freely continue on the path they were following. The only way into liberation and a peaceful journey was to set down the boat, leave it in the tangle of leaves and branches, and set off unburdened and free, trusting that whatever unknown challenges lay around the next corner, everything they needed for the journey would be given to them when the time was right. It's such an intrinsic part of our human nature to cling to the familiar, even when it's become a burden. In fact, I'm pretty certain that every person listening to this, and I include myself here, will be carrying burdens that we no longer need to carry. In this episode, we're going to explore what it means to release those things that no longer serve us. This may be patterns of behavior or thought that have helped us in the past but now are holding us back. It may be our sense of self, stories we tell about ourselves, about the kind of person we are, that are no longer true. But the old story is still persistently playing. Or it may be very concrete things like a job or a relationship that we know we've outgrown. Or simply a really messy room in the house filled up with old junk which sits as a burden in our minds, nagging away at the edge of our attention, knowing we need to do something about it, but never getting round to it. In fact, the physical spaces we inhabit so often reflect our internal state of being. Sometimes that big clear out we've been meaning to get done also brings with it a mental and spiritual clarity as we get rid of the physical and metaphysical detritus weighing us down. So today, however you've come to be watching this video, my encouragement to you is this. Let's take a moment to figure out what burdens we're carrying, that it's time to put down. This is your sign that the thing in your life you've been meaning to get rid of for so long is ready to be left by the side of the road, and you can travel on lighter and more free. This is much easier said than done, of course. Those familiar burdens are so comforting to cling to, even if the comfort is simply that we're used to the way it feels rather than any goodness that flows from it into our lives. Leaving behind old aspects of self, we find all kinds of justifications for why not to do it. The traveller with the boat was worried about what they would do if they came across another river and had left the boat behind, which sounds quite sensible and reasonable. But ultimately, they were still carrying unwarranted burdens. Years ago, I would meet occasionally with a wise Sikh mystic for meditation and conversation. And he'd often tell me that I knew the thing that was holding me back, and I needed to let it go. And as an aside, I do find that when we live with the intention of deepening our awareness and connection, then the teachers and wisdom we need appear at the right moment. Uh, this guy never said what it was that I needed to let go, but I knew he was talking about the relationship I was in. And I made up every excuse in the world to look the other way, to persuade myself that it was something else he was talking about. And I was very persuasive to myself, using all my effort to avoid the most important issue, until one day the whole thing exploded in my face in that painful and messy way as these life moments so often are. But in the end, it was so deeply liberating. And when I next saw my friend, he smiled gently and said, "See, I told you it was holding you back." How can we find a way to release those dead things that we cling to? The dead relationship, the addictive patterns of behavior that are spiraling and taking us nowhere good, the clinging to an old self, an old way of being that has served us well in the past, but is now holding us back. There's a famous story from Zen Buddhism that you may be familiar with. Two monks who are traveling together, and as part of their discipline, they'd made a vow to never touch a woman. And I'm not going to comment on whether that's a good or a bad thing to make a vow like that. But one day they reach the edge of a turbulent river, and a woman is waiting to cross to the other side, but is afraid to get into the water. So the elder monk picks her up on his shoulders and carries her to the other side. He sets her down, and the two monks continue on their journey. For hours, the younger monk is silent, seething with rage at seeing his elder disobey such a serious vow. Eventually, he can bear it no longer, and he shouts at his companion, "You know that we're not allowed to contact with women. How could you carry that woman on your shoulders?" The older, wiser monk smiles gently and says to the young man, "Oh, are you still carrying her? I set her down on the riverbank hours ago." The more we struggle with the dead things we carry, the more power we give to them. The elder monk was truly free. It was the young novice who poured so much of his anger, virtue signaling energy into what he felt was an entirely justified indignation. The burden carried was not the woman helped across the river, but was his response to fret and wrestle with what had happened. The more we fight with things that it's time to release, the more exhausted we become and the more power we give to them. No need to cling. No need to cling to things that have served us well in the past but are now weighing us down. Perhaps all we need is permission, someone to say, "It's okay to leave this here." The voice of your deepest and kindest inner wisdom reassures you, leave it here, leave the dead things, and continue into life. Here's a story behind this painting. A few months ago, we were exploring along a steep path in the forest on the island here and came across a hidden church. The little Greek Orthodox churches are remarkable places, painted white on the outside. Inside, they're festooned with icons, paintings, candles, and carvings. It's like stepping through a portal into a different dimension. Outside the church was a tiny building, like a small white shed, just a few meters square. And inside, in the deep peace of the wild forest, we found boxes the size of shoeboxes, and each contained a human skull. It was an ossuary, a place for the dead. It felt so beautiful and a deeply sacred space of care and remembrance. This painting reflects on that experience of the place. The figure offers love and thanks to the dead things that reside in the forest. But they don't come back to life. They're dead and they need to be released rather than clung to. As with the boat in the story, clinging to the things that are past and gone takes up so much energy and effort. When it's an aspect of ourselves that's dead and no longer serves us, it's to keep hold of it is like having a gangrenous limb hanging from our body, useless and fetid. Not only will it weigh us down, but its lifelessness can slowly seep into the rest of our body and does us no good at all. Instead, rather than clinging to it or even wrestling with it through guilt and shame as the young monk did, let's attend with gentleness and kindness. Often, although not always, these things have served us well in the past. For example, if you find yourself over defensive and unable to let people get close to you, there may have been a time in your life when that was an important impulse that protected you and was much needed. So as that comes into your attention as something that you need to release now, you thank it for the way it served you and then gently let it go because it's no longer needed. Or a connection with someone that's run its course and is now sapping your energy, even though it was once a source of life and creative vigor in your life. Say thank you and release. I'm going to suggest a practice that will help us with this process. But just to note that this releasing of dead things that no longer serves us is different to the things in our lives that are asking for transformation, which is important shadow work. This may be impulses that are channeled into unhelpful directions. For example, finding ourselves quick to anger may be transformed into a passionate energy to stand up for justice when held in a more helpful manner. But that process is for another episode. Oh, and I'd just like to take a moment to offer a huge thank you to the messages of support I've had about these videos I'm making, which I do offer in love and care, trusting that they'll find the right people at the right time. And if you are able to subscribe to the channel and click like on the video, that would be amazing. And I really appreciate it. And if you could share this video with someone you feel that it will resonate with, then that's a great help too. Thank you. So one practice that can help us to let go of these things is a contemplative journey that I described in episode 3. And you could use the guided journey that I offer on this channel for this, if that's helpful. What we do, we set aside 15 minutes or so for the practice, take a moment to center ourselves in our breath and our body, and then using our imagination and conjuring up from all of our senses, sight, sound, smells, and textures, we enter a portal into the earth, somewhere you know and feel safe, in a forest perhaps, or a beach. Travel down, maybe through a little hollow in a tree, or a cave, or a cleft in the rocks, deep down into the safe holding of the earth, which is also a journey down into our own secret heart, the place where kind, gentle wisdom resides. Travel to a place where you feel safe and held, and then welcome a trusted teacher into that space. Maybe a figure from your religious tradition, or a being from myth and story that you trust. And in that space, ask them the question, what is it that I'm carrying that is dead and that I need to put down? And you may very well already know the answer, or they may say something that surprises you. Whatever happens, trust that all of it is held in love for your highest good. And then ask them to help you release that which is no longer serving you. And you may find that you're holding an object that symbolizes whatever it is, then perhaps give it to them or cast it into the fire or into the sea. An action of releasing after first thanking it for its time in your life, if that feels appropriate. Take your time. It's not a quick fix, but a profound moment of liberation. When you return to the sensations of your physical body, you might find it helpful to make a small ritual to embody the release. Write whatever it is you're letting go down on a piece of paper, perhaps. Really feel the weight of it and what it has meant to you. Again, offer thanks if that feels right. Let it know it's no longer needed in your life. Then burn the paper or throw it in a stream or bury it. Whatever small ritual feels right to you. This can be a very powerful practice, and I'd highly recommend finding a trusted, wise friend to talk it through with afterwards, or with someone who is experienced at accompanying people on their soul journey. Letting go of the dead aspects of self, those parts of us that are no longer serving our highest good, can be quite disorienting, because we find ourselves stepping into a new identity. Someone who reacts differently, who feels differently, whose sense of self is perhaps more expansive. The old skin has been sloughed off like a snake, and it takes time to feel at home in the new, more liberated space. But why do creatures like snakes or lobsters shed their old shells and skins? It's because of growth. Their old covering may have served them well, but now it's too small. And without letting go, it'll stifle them and slowly suffocate them. Give yourself to the risk of growth. And at the same time, let's be kind with our failures. Power coerces with shame and fear. This is different. It's a process of gentleness and love. If we mess up, slipping back into an old pattern of behavior, for example, or letting the junk pile up again, that's okay. No need to wrestle with it and give it more power than it deserves. Once again, notice what happened and then open your hands and let it float gently away downstream. Of course, after letting go, these creatures shedding their old shells are particularly tender and exposed. And so it is with us. When we go through a process of releasing the dead, it's important to be kind and gentle with ourselves. This is a tender time and needs care. So there's no need to push too hard. Rest and be assured that you are loved. This time can also shift the dynamics of our relationship. As we change, often the people around us are not aware of the dramatic transformations of self that we're experiencing in our inner world, and they continue to relate to the old self. It can be so tempting to slip back into the old patterns, to let those old tapes play again, when all those around us are expecting that of us. Like compulsively texting an ex-partner who we know is no good for us. Let them go. This is not a connection that's serving you, or doing them any good for that matter either. Again, be kind. Take a moment to breathe. Center yourself and reaffirm the truth that you are not that person anymore. So, if you have the sense of a burden you're carrying and it's time to release the boat you've been struggling with along the path that was useful in the past, but it's now weighing you down, take some time to release and move into a life more vibrant and free. No need to fight it. No need to beat ourselves up with guilt and shame. When we struggle with them, we give them more power as we pretend they're still alive. They're dead. If we tend to the dead things with kindness and thankfulness, that's how we let them go. Taking this seriously will bring profound changes to your life and soul. As you explore these things, if a one-to-one video call will be helpful, I've got over 15 years of experience accompanying people on their spiritual journeys. So drop me a message and we can discuss what might work for you. Also, if you'd be interested in having your personal story and experience expressed in a piece of art like these around here, then I'd be really happy to work with you. When people commission me in this way, we work together to create a unique artwork, a painting like this, or a little sculpture or talisman, or whatever would be helpful to you at this point in your life. If that's something that interests you, then send me a message or follow the link that attached to the channel. Also, I really appreciate all the positive feedback I've been receiving for these videos. If there's a subject that you would be interested in me exploring in the future, then do let me know and I'll make an episode for you. So, thank you for listening. I hope you have a peaceful and gentle day. And I'll be here again at the same time next week for more journeys with art, soul, and landscape. Lots of love.